we prioritize everything else. So a balanced diet is just the way it was taught to us in primary school, right? And it's the basic of it. And I'm sure you've seen, you know, with all these diets that are coming up, if you've noticed, everything is going back to basics.
Yeah.
So things came up, no, we should do this, do that, but now everything is going back to basics, and it's just the basics of it. So a balanced diet is a diet that will have all your nutrients that you need to sustain your health. So you need carbohydrates. Your carbohydrates will be your rice, your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, your pumpkin, so your starch basically. And then you need your fat as well. I mean, we can go into details about that. It's a controversial thing, but you definitely need your fat. You know that your body requires fat. There are certain vitamins that require to be moved because of fat, right, in the body. So you need your fat, and it's also protective as well. You need your protein, which is your building blocks, right? Your building blocks. So you need your protein. So your protein will come from your meats, your eggs. If you're a vegetarian, it will come from your beans, for example. And then you need your fruits and your vegetables, which should be your vitamins, right? So balance as a term itself is rather ambiguous. It's not a term that I particularly like, but what I would tell people is that everything in moderation, right?
Okay.
Just everything in moderation, because when you start becoming too critical about like the nitty-gritties, I think you lose your way, essentially.
Yeah.
So I would say if you want to really encompass a balanced diet, get back to grandmother's diet, you know, like what we grew up with. That is your balanced diet, you know. So I give an example of like your sweet potato in the morning. I mean, there was something on social media where people were talking about almost making fun of sweet potato. But sweet potato is good for you, right?
Yeah.
And then some people will say, no, it's high carbohydrate. But we need carbohydrate. And, you know, and the science of it is that actually you need it for your brain to function, right?
Wow.
So you can have sweet potato for breakfast, or you can have an egg and a slice of bread. And then for lunch, I'll go a bit extreme, right? And so millet meal, sorghum meal are more indigenous to Zambia than maize meal, by the way. So that, a lump of that, some vegetables, some green vegetables, whatever local vegetables you can plant in your garden, a piece of meat, and some water. So hydration, right? We're putting in the hydration. And then you can have some pumpkin for dinner. And I'm sure in that would have met the carbohydrates intake, would have made the fat intake, would have met the protein intake, and then also the vitamins and the vitamins from the fruits and vegetables intake. So roughly, that's what I would say. So a balanced diet would be what you require at any stage in life. So remember that different stages require different things, right? So I think you talked about a growing baby. You know, when the baby is a baby, their balanced diet is breast milk, and all these things are in breast milk, right? And breast milk is also high fat, by the way. So, you know, so all these things are in breast milk, and then a growing child also requires X amount of food. As you get older, you know, and then the older you get, you actually start to reduce in terms of the number of calories, which is just the amount of food that you eat. So the components are the same, but the amounts of foods that you're eating. So across the life cycle, the amounts will vary, but by and large, they all have to meet these food groups.
Right, interesting. And what do you have to say about negative eating habits? I can give you examples of things that we like. For example, carbonated drinks.
Okay.
I think that is a big component of our diets.
Exactly.
Alcohol is also a very big component of our diet. Increased salt intake. I think Zambians eat a lot of salt. I was actually looking at one of the most common causes of hypertension in Zambia, increased salt intake. So those are some of the things that we like particularly. So what would you have to say really about those, and in relation to a balanced diet, how do you fuse them in? Do you have to completely stop? How do you incorporate them in a balanced diet?
So I don't think you actually incorporate them in the balanced diet for starters. Remember, there's a commercialization of everything, right? And so we have to be very careful. And I think one of the things that I'd urge you to do, even as you make these goals, is to be very knowledgeable. And everybody should be knowledgeable about food, about different things. So A high salt intake, yes, is very, very, very common. The easiest way we say is not to add any salt, but then we have a tendency to eat fast food, and fast food is very high as well in sodium. And then sodas, there's nothing good about sodas. You know, I mean, it's a feel good at the end of the day, and I would say in moderation, because again, you know, if you stop people from doing, you can't really stop people from doing everything, right? And then there are certain pleasures in life, and so everything in moderation. So if you have a soda a week, for instance, when you go for like a function and you have a Coke, I doubt that will have much implication on your health. But I think most people, especially when they become a little bit affluent, right? It's a Fanta for lunch. And another soda for dinner. So sodas are very, very high in sugar, right? And then they've got all these preservatives as well. And even the dietary ones, which people would think that they're not, they're also high in other types of sugar and high in calories as well. So I wouldn't recommend. So in fact, when I'm asking people to get on a diet, quote unquote, right, I actually tell people to say, let's stop the easiest things first. And one of the easiest things to say is, let's eliminate soda, for instance, from the diet. Like, let's just try and do all this. So just that, you know, usually. And then maybe the next one would be like, let's eliminate fast food, right? And then just that. Then you'll be eating your regular food that you're cooking in your home. Like, so just these small steps to actually then get to, as opposed to this big fancy, you know, a big fancy diet, for example. So, yeah. Alcohol. So I'm sure you've seen the studies now. Before we used to say that a glass of wine or like one drink a day, or we had like parameters, was okay. Right? But now the study is actually showing that there's no amount of alcohol that is good. That is,
even the smallest can actually cause cancer. I think that
so there's this correlation. So alcohol
people must completely stop.
I think if you can, you can. I think the questions that people should ask themselves, especially around alcohol, is what does it actually do for you, right? And what does it actually do for you? What are the effects? And if it's what brings you happiness, then you can introspect into that and then say, okay, what other things can I do then? If I'm going to reach out for alcohol to give me happiness, what other things? Because this is harmful.
So you
so that you can then think. But you have to think through that. Think through it. But again, I think if you're going to have a glass of wine, I'm sure, like if you're going to have a glass of wine on a Saturday, I don't think it's going to have like a big profound effect on you, but we have to give you the science. We have to give you the science, and it's evidence-based medicine. So that's what it is. But yeah, the thing about alcohol as well is that most people who then develop a habit of drinking, when we're talking about nutrition here, is that alcohol competes with a lot of vitamins in your body, and I'm sure you've heard of the famous B vitamins, you know, B complex, neurobio, and you know, those things. So you start having problems as a result of now having these nutritional deficiencies because it's competing. But also when you have a habit of when you become alcoholic or you're drinking too much alcohol, you tend to not eat a lot as well. You know, to nurse a hangover, you have to take more alcohol, and so therefore then you're interfering with the balanced diet that we're talking about, right? And then alcohol is also directly toxic to your gut, right? So a lot of people who consume excess amount of alcohol have got problems as well with their tummies, you know, also again the gases, and you know that. So I think vicious cycle. So if you know, the advice is really, if you can avoid it, avoid it.
Yeah, I think earlier you talked about the aspect of, I think you talked about anorexia and bulimia, and I think with social media, you know, you need to look a particular way, right? And then on the ladies' side, obviously, you need to be a particular shape for you to be admired and for you to be more acceptable. So what that has done is given so much pressure on the men. They're constantly lifting heavy things in gyms just so that they can look a bit. And also goes for the ladies. For those that, for example, are overweight, they're using a lot of substances. Others even going as far as even visiting traditional healers just so that they can lose weight. So people are doing a lot to kind of maintain their physical appearance. And of course, even the other things that are unavoidable unavoidable. For example, you find this man is just married. My wife is going to be judged by how I'm going to be looking.
Exactly.
If I'm still thin, they'll say, the wife
not cooking for your husband.
Yeah, so physical appearance, mental health, and nutrition. I wanted to just speak on that, how the physical appearance itself affects the mental health, and also just provide some encouragement to the viewers out there who may be thinking maybe they're overweight and they're not looking good enough, maybe they're underweight and not looking good enough. Just also speak to that.
Okay, yeah, that one's loaded. So I think first things first, I think don't believe everything you see. The thing about social media is that it's not regulated, right? And I mean, if you ask everybody what they post on social media, you're not really going to post your worst picture. No, you know, you post your best picture,
true.
and that's like 2 minutes of your life. The other time, maybe you're wearing pajamas, sitting in the living room, just relaxed and things like that. But people don't get to see that. So that's the trouble with social media, is that it actually puts out what is not, what is perhaps not true, right? I think I was reading something the other day that was talking about how, something about couples, and that couples who post the most and are constantly posting their spouses and things like that are possibly not the happiest. So, right? That's that kind of thing. So, unfortunately, social media is it doesn't do well at portraying what the real issues are. So I think the reminder to people is just to always think that, like, you don't always believe what you see, right? So in fact, you should actually limit your time on social media, as a start. So, but yeah, definitely, because what happens when you look at something, it registers, right? And then it affects you. Remember, I talked about how you think and how you feel, and then how you behave. And then there are stereotypes about who should look. But when you really think, when you look at all of us, we are all different, right? For starters, some people are dark, some people are light, some people are short, some people are tall. So how is it then that we fit into one idea of what it's supposed to be? So I think we should question. We should question these things and what they actually do first and foremost. And then the biggest muscles are also linked to kidney disease, So it's like, again, question these things. I think that if your primary goal is your health, and your health is how you feel and how you actually are, I think then you have some guidance. So your guidance for most things should be about health, how you actually enjoy your relationships, how you enjoy your work, how you interact with the environment, and that should be your guiding, your guiding principle, as opposed to what the next person, thinks. For instance, if they say you have to, when we're getting older, we should build muscle, right? It makes sense because our bones are becoming weaker, right? So we should build more muscle. So perhaps we should have a bit more protein-rich diets. Then it's like, okay, because it's attached to your health. So it's got nothing to do with how you look, but it's attached to your health, right? Yeah. If a child is lacking in certain things, so like vitamin D, I remember my son, when he was born, he had low vitamin D levels, and then that led to him having low calcium levels. You give that maybe a bit more in excess at that particular time because you're meeting that particular goal. Okay, so if you're overweight, for instance, overweight is not about how you look, it's about what it does to your health, right? So we say like this abdominal fat, for instance, is a risk factor for like cardiovascular, these heart attacks and all these things, stroke and everything. So your goal in terms of trying to lose weight should be attached to the fact that you want to reduce your chances of disease. So I think we should attach our goals for our nutrition goals to health itself, as opposed to things like how we look and everything. Yeah, because the next person, they say someone's always going to be prettier, whatever prettier is. We don't know what pretty is. We don't know what all those things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think time is not on our side. Okay. So I think Sister Malango can just take us through the myths and the facts, and then I think lastly, I want to just share with us also some nutritional goals. Like, what nutritional goals do you have personally?
Okay.
And Sister Malango also share hers nutritional goals, and I also share my nutritional goals. I think we can get into the myths and the facts.
All right. So the topic is so interesting that, they say time flies when you're having fun, and indeed we're having fun and we're also learning. But here are some myths and facts about, we were talking about mental health and nutrition. Okay, so Dr. Angel, I'm going to read some myths here, and you're going to tell us whether it's true or false, and then you try to explain.
Okay.
So the first myth is only wealthy people can follow a perfect nutrition plan. Healthy food is expensive. Is that true or false?
Okay, that's false.
Okay.
Yeah, that's false. I think, particularly in Zambia, I think in the West maybe they could have some basis for that, but particularly in Zambia, we have most of our healthy foods will be our vegetables, and we can grow them freely. And if you look, what's the most cheapest things, for instance, is vegetables, and we have a variety of local vegetables. So just off of that,
wow,
I would say that is false.
So we've heard it. Okay, having an appetite is always a sign of good or better health, especially for those who were sick. Is this true or false?
Okay, that one I think is both.
Okay,
but I think most I'll say it's good, because
Yeah.
you know, when you have an appetite, especially, and then I've got a bias. I'm a mental health practitioner, so when somebody doesn't have appetite, usually it will signify something like depression, for instance. They don't have, they don't feel the need to eat, and you should have a need to. You know, you should have a need to eat. So if if you don't have an appetite, we'd say it's not a good thing. So if you have an appetite, we'd say it's a good thing. But then there's also the issue we talked about, right? Stress eating, and that. So in that regard, I would say having an appetite is a good thing, but there's that caveat as well.
Wow. And you cannot be healthy by eating the same food almost every day. True or false?
Again, I think this one as well is both. I think it speaks, I'll say it's false in the sense that you want variety. So you want to eat different types of food, right? So you want to have a variety of food, and it's not possible for you to eat a variety of food. You know, in one day, right? However, in places like, especially in rural areas where they eat the same thing, so they say maybe like they'll have like a sour milk, and then they have a vegetable, and then they have a protein, it can be healthy because they're meeting their nutritional requirements in terms of the components of the food.
Wow. Learning is taking place. The other myth now is losing or gaining weight is an individual's fault. True or false?
So for this one, I'll go with false. Just because I'll pick on a few things. You know, when somebody has thyroid, we're always checking thyroid in this wellness checks. If somebody has got hypothyroidism, which is very common, especially in females, it means that their metabolism is quite slow. So it also means that they don't process food as quickly, and they don't digest as quickly. So it means that they can gain weight as a result of that. Postpartum mothers also can gain weight post-delivery and during delivery. So there are a lot of instances that can be medical, for instance, where people can gain weight or lose weight that have got nothing to do with their food. So I'll go with false for this one.
Okay. No. Thank you so much. We've heard and we've learned, and I believe everyone out there has picked up something, and I hope some of you are writing down things. So we've come to the end of the show, but before we do so, I'm going to tell you something that we offer as Teledoctor and where you can access these services. So we are in collaboration with Woodland Specialist Clinic, where you can go if you want to see a dermatologist. You can go there to Woodland Specialist, and it's going to start on the 1st of February. That's a Saturday, 1st February of this year. We also have a wonderful podcast with our Professor Wubrod Mutale on a Think Talk podcast every Wednesdays at 7 hours on Facebook and Spotify. We also have a fertility clinic with Dr. Makamo, which is every Thursday at the Woodland Specialist Clinic. So if you're suffering from anything that you need, like a fertility specialist to see you, look no further. Come to Woodland Specialist and see Dr. Makamo. We also have other services that you can access on the Teledoctor app. If you want to see a doctor, do you want to see a nurse, do you want to see a nutritionist, a physiotherapist, or do you need a refill of your prescription? Do you need to also see a cardiologist? All those services are accessed on our 2.0 Teledoctor app, which you can download if you have a smartphone that is an Apple phone, or if you have just any Android phone. We also have services that we offer. There's corporate wellness, and we do telehealth or home service. So look no further but download this app. I would like to say thank you to the teams that I had here. Dr. Chira, thank you so much for being with us and educating with us. And my co-host, Dr. Blessings Kasenge, thank you so much from us, Teledoctor team. I've been your host today. My name is Malango Goma. Thank you very much and see you next week.